I have the utmost pleasure to introduce my dear friend Renee Davenport to be a speaker at this IPA Summit. Renee is a master herbalist, a clinical iridologist. She's also a detoxification specialist and a certified comprehensive iridologist. And she's going to talk to us on the topic from Bernard Jensen to the 21st century and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Hello, everyone. My name, as Tony mentioned, is Renee Davenport, and I would like you to know that I love iridology. I believe that I have a lot in common with all iridologists around the world. I began studying iridology in 2010 and was taught the Jensen model. As I practiced iridology, there were some things that made iridology practice difficult for me. For instance, I had a client who couldn't walk and hadn't been walking for 6 months. The medical field told him to give up all hopes of going back to work, and he was really at his wit's end. His sister, who was a client of mine, she told him, oh, go to Renee. She does good work, and I think she can really help you. So he came in, we did our analysis. I put him on a detoxification regimen, and we decided that we would see each other every 2 weeks because of his condition. Well, when I saw him on his 4th visit, he walked into my office, and oh my goodness, that was unbelievable for me. Immediately, I began looking for the healing lines in harmony with my education. This was going to be such a big deal for me. I was shocked, surprised, and very disappointed when I didn't find any healing lines. There were no differences in the structure of the lacuna that was in his eyes. And I couldn't reconcile this. There were some other things also that I was taught that as I would see clients, I wasn't finding that were true. So I wanted to quit practicing iridology because I cannot teach something or I cannot practice something that I cannot explain. I wanted to quit. But eventually I found a wonderful teacher, Judith Cobb, in Canada, who taught a more updated curriculum. What is more, she also gifts all her students a 1-year IPA membership. So that was exactly what I needed, and she filled that need perfectly. Now that I have studied both the Jensen model and the constitutional iridology models, a great dream of mine is for all iridologists to work together to advance iridology into the 21st century and beyond. Would you like to see that as well? Do you think that it's possible to achieve? Well, one thing for sure is that both sides, or all iridologists, have the utmost respect for this man in this picture, Bernard Jensen. What would Bernard Jensen think of this great divide that we see in iridology today? Well, there's an interview that I have the privilege of sharing with you in this presentation that I believe sheds light on this very subject. I'm happy that you're joining me today in this presentation of From Bernard Jensen to the 21st Century. So let's get started. Here we see Bernard Jensen, and this picture is actually in his volume 2 of his book. Bernard Jensen loved iridology. His commitment to iridology had him travel the world to study the secrets of longevity. He lived to 93 years old and spent over 50 years lecturing to thousands on iridology and nutrition. He was ahead of his time. Bernard Jensen became a true pioneer of iridology through hard work. His success, though, came with a price. There were many tribulations that Bernard Jensen had to endure. Like others who introduced something new, Dr. Jensen received tribulation and the odds were really stacked against him. We see here that he withstood this ridicule. He was greatly ridiculed and he went to jail at least twice. Once, a television personality, said that he was doing something peculiar, diagnosing people by looking in their eyes. And then another time, they recommended, or he was found recommending natural therapies, including carrot juice of all things. In both cases, they slapped the cuffs on him and threw him in the slammer. But I like this quote here. It says, "Let them ridicule you, laugh at you, hurt you, and ignore you, but never let them stop you." And we're very happy that Dr. Jensen followed just that. One of the things that Dr. Jensen had was sterling qualities: integrity, love, devotion. And because of these sterling qualities, he accomplished in his lifetime what would take many people several lifetimes to accomplish. Those who knew him attested to the fact that he had integrity. He put his heart into his work and helped thousands of people achieve better health during his career. He also mentored hundreds who he embraced, nurtured, and helped grow into world-renowned iridologists. Even those who never met him became successful owing to his efforts. Due to these facts, Bernard Jensen became an icon of iridology. Let's briefly consider a few who remember him with fondness. First, we have Dr. Robert Morse. Dr. Morse is the founder of the International School of Detoxification, and he loves and teaches the Jensenian model of iridology exclusively. Now, I started using his herbal protocols with my clients in 2012. This is a very well-known, high-profile practitioner out of Florida, and he has many followers. Next, we have Harvey Vedder. Harvey Vedder is the director of the New York Center for Iridology. Now, before I became an IPA certified iridologist, I became a clinical iridologist at the New York Center for Iridology with husband and wife team, Harvey and Judy Vedder. I started in December of 2010 and got certified in March of 2012. They recommended Jensen's books, and I purchased them and read through them and loved every single word. Harvey makes a great point here. Listen to his, listen to Harvey's quote. It says, "Knowing him solely from his seminal writings, I admire and salute a great leader. Consider his exemplary and relentless insistence on iridology's scope and still untapped potential, his professionally executed chart, his world-combing research, his readiness to learn from others. Add to this his late life trauma recovery and his polite, ignored repost to shabby treatment in an ill-designed JAMA study. A great man, Bernard Jensen. I only wish he had lived to collaborate with like pioneer Søren Melvalian, whose iris photography yet waits in the wings." So I like the fact that he says here that it's his readiness to learn from others. He brings attention to that. And this is definitely a quality of Dr. Jensen that is worth emulating. Another quote we have is from Bill Caradonna. Now this quote is taken from an article, "Are You Practicing Healing Iridology?" And this is an amazing two-part series that took a look at the European and American iridology models. Now, if you don't have these research CDs from IPA, I would encourage you to get them. Learning the history of IPA really helped me to respect IPA so much more, for the leadership in iridology research. And if you're wondering why the European model of iridology and the American model of iridology are different, you will really enjoy what you learn in those articles. So here we have Toni Miller. And if you've ever had the privilege of hearing Toni speak, you know how much she respects Bernard Jensen as one of her mentors. And this is what she has to say. She says, Jensen gave us the foundation. Without him, I don't think iridology would have survived in the US, and therefore it wouldn't have survived in the English-speaking world, because his passion was wonderful, and he was such a generous teacher. He was just a beautiful, beautiful man who shared everything he knew with all of his students. Yes, Jensen definitely achieved a great deal. He made a phenomenal mark on the practice of iridology during the last half of the 20th century. And this is a picture here of all his awards, or some of his awards. There's so many, but the one I like is this one here in the top left, where it looks like he received the Darth Vader Iridology Master Jedi Award. If you blow these up and look at them, they're very, very interesting. Many different people awarded Dr. Jensen for all the wonderful things that he did for the field of iridology. And the thing that's amazing about this is that this is a time when there was no internet, no social media, no marketing firms, and no little red hearts and emojis. He was on his own, and he accomplished so much. But now, a good question is, did all this fame go to Bernard Jensen's head? Was he full of ego? Did he want to be viewed as the be-all and end-all when it came to the profession of iridology? How did he feel about research and change? These are important questions because there seems to be this divide concerning iridology that surrounds the work of Bernard Jensen. It's great to be passionately appreciative about our mentor and our work, but when emotion meets devotion, the fanatic is born. Now, do you think that Bernard Jensen envisioned this for the profession of iridology that he loved so much? Extremist, militant, dogmatist, devotee, all-consuming, dominating. And do you think that was his vision? Well, of course not. These attitudes are opposed to progress. I want to introduce an interview, as I mentioned before, that Ellen Jensen conducted with Dr. Jensen. I think you'll be enlightened, and perhaps the profession of iridology can learn something about how to heal the divide and move forward together in the 21st century. 18 and a half years ago, on February 22nd, 2000, Bernard Jensen answered some important questions in an interview. Now, he proved that his devotion was not to his own fame, but rather to the profession of iridology. Incidentally, this entire interview is on the IPA research CDs that we just encourage everyone to pick up from IPA. And here's the address here if you want to get them. We recommend them highly because we can't answer, or we can't entertain the entire interview here. So we recommend that you get those. So, Ellen Jensen's first question: how did you become interested in iridology? So Dr. Jensen says, I became interested in iridology because my father was a chiropractor. One day, I saw a book in his library written by a J. Haskell Kritzer on iris diagnosis. I read it in depth. I found that iridology was a different type of analysis that did consider the health of the organs. I studied it very deeply. One of my first iridology courses was with Dr. J. Haskell Kritzer. He was a medical doctor. He took quite a liking to me and worked extra with me to expand my education in iridology. Now, I just want to pause for a minute because that I found amazing. When I read this, I thought, Jensen studied with Kritzer. So, is it possible that some of the teachings that are now being clarified didn't actually originate with Jensen after all? And it does matter. Let me give you an illustration. Let's say that your father gets into an accident and is badly hurt. And I'm not obviously wishing this on your father, but let's just say, when you go to see him in the hospital, you pass many rooms with some very, very sick people in those rooms. Usually, though, you don't start crying until you actually get to the room of your loved one and you see their condition. It touches your heart and it moves you to tears. So, okay, how does this apply to iridology? Imagine one day, I'm Bernard Jensen's daughter. I'm at home relaxing, just about to take the first bite of a crisp, delicious salad, and I get a call. Your father's been very badly hurt. Someone sliced and diced him. Get down here. Oh my God, I'm coming right over, I say, right? I rush to the hospital, but trust me, I vow that I'm gonna get the person who did this to my father, right? So I run, I finally get to the hospital. And what? There's a sheet over his head? Oh my God. So I inch up, bow my head, say a little prayer. I grab the sheet and pull it down. Oh my God, it's Kritzer. It's not my father at all. I don't know. I just know it's not my father. I don't know his name. But okay, how do I feel? I feel quite relieved. And just about now, I'm starting to get hungry again, right? So what's the point? It's much easier to see somebody sliced and diced when you don't have an emotional attachment to that person. So yeah, trust me, it really does matter. So Kritzer taught Jensen. And all this time, I'm thinking Jensen is the originator of all these things. If you take a look at this book was written in 1921, so nearly 100 years ago. In this book, we talk about the Scurf rim, we talk about the sodium ring, we talk about sulfur, we talk about acute, subacute, chronic, and instead of degenerative, which Jensen talks about in his book, Kritzer uses the word destruction. And this was a very big revelation for me. It helped me to see that, okay, I don't have to be up in arms because Jensen's teachings are being changed. It actually originated with someone else, Dr. Kritzer. Now, I don't know about Dr. Jensen's beginning. I didn't know about Dr. Jensen's beginning with iridology, or at least I didn't really think about it objectively when I first started studying it. But what do you think about that point? What do you think about this information? Isn't it interesting? Okay, next question. Have you seen changes in how people use iridology over the past 50 years? Yes, but computers are the way of the future for iridology. The computers must view the iris fiber structure so that you could see down to the very dot that begins the vibration. I would change tomorrow on anything in iridology or nutrition if I found that there was a better way of doing it. Now that is compelling. He was looking for further development using computers, and he says he would change anything if only he had access to the right information. He viewed change as a means to make progress. This is important because we now have the capability to contribute to the progress that iridology continues to make into the 21st century and beyond. And that is wonderful. So another question. Ellen asks, what do you think about research on constitution and the eye color? And Dr. Jensen says, I believe a lot of new things are going to come up. And I like that because it seems like he was nonchalant. Oh, yeah, new things, we always have to expect that new things are going to come up. And he had to know that there was some pioneer work being done at the time on constitutional iridology. But he wasn't phased. And okay, yeah, change, absolutely. So what does this attitude teach us? Rhetorical question. Let's go to the next slide. What do you envision for iridology 20 years down the road? Dr. Jensen says, above all things, be ready for the future that's coming to iridology. I believe that iridology could be the basis of one of the greatest forms of analysis that we could have. I believe that we could find things in the iris with a computer that we wouldn't get from the naked eye. I think our future is to develop iridology further using computers. However, that may not come for a couple of years yet. We see here that Dr. Jensen was an iridological visionary. I appreciate his use of the words, our future, and he says, we could have. So this man is now 92 years old, but he's still looking ahead 20 years as if he was going to be there. This is definitely a man who wanted to be around to see the changes that he envisioned. Unfortunately, 363 days after uttering these words in this interview, on February 21st, 2001, Bernard Jensen took his last breath. That was one very sad day. But what do Jensen's words teach us? He says, I would change on anything. He says, our future is to develop iridology further. He says, be ready for the future coming to iridology. Bernard Jensen did not think that iridology was just a means of making money, getting followers, and achieving fame. He wanted to see iridology progress. He wanted to see new things happen, and he wanted to be part of the discovery. So now let's say, for instance, that Bernard Jensen comes back from the dead. No, not in a creepy, sort of ghosty, spiritistic kind of way, but literally, the same man who there was before, he's sitting right before us, right now. What do you think his first question is going to be? 20 years ago, I said, be ready for the future that's coming to iridology. What advancements have you guys made? Was I right? Did you guys make progress? I think he'd be quite excited to say that. Now, what if somebody says to him, Bernie, I'm sorry to tell you, we've made absolutely no advancements yet in the 21st century. How do you think Dr. Jensen would feel about that? I personally think he would be heartbroken. Since we've almost hit the 20-year mark since Jensen's interview, a good question is, what is the state of iridology now? In many ways, as we mentioned before, iridology seems divided. Which side have you taken? Is that a bad question? Actually, for iridology, I think it is a bad question. I don't think that one side or the other side is what Bernard Jensen envisioned when he thought about the future of iridology. I don't think he thought this. This is not a pretty picture. As an iridologist, I have to ask myself if I want to contribute to the them versus us mentality that keeps iridologists divided. Do you want to contribute to this? If we have taken a side, then we are contributing to this. Now, what we have here are different viewpoints or perspectives. The question really is, what does the evidence support? Let the truth emerge by an objective view of the facts. But by all means, let's not contribute to this. Do you think that Jensen envisioned this for iridology in the 21st century? Well, let me ask you, why is this even important? Why should we care about divisions in iridology? Well, iridologists collectively have a sinister enemy. There are people out there who think iridology is a joke. It would please them greatly to see iridology scuffed out. Not Jensenian or European iridology, but iridology, all of it. I like this little picture. So when the fish are fragmented, going in their separate ways, how are they possibly going to fight against this big fish? But when they get together and they join forces, now everything is possible. They can actually beat them and win. Now, when we think about the vision, IPA has a mission to help iridology do just that. Now, I want to read the mission statement of IPA. It says, to see iridology utilized as an assessment tool in all branches of medicine, both alternative and allopathic, in all countries, and made readily available to every man, woman, and child. When I read that, I think Jensen looked positively to the future with respects to iridology, and I think he shared the exact same vision as IPA. And I think all of us really, as iridologists, we want to see this field perpetuated. We've discussed the legacy that Bernard Jensen left. Now, how can we honor that legacy? Invite change. When something new is mentioned, instead of being offended or being emotionally invested, seek to clarify. It's a fact that virtually any living iridologist can be contacted to get clarification on anything that they've written, unlike when Bernard Jensen was here. So we want to do this for the sake of unity and understanding, to help further iridology as a profession. Indeed, the future is now. So now, what clarifications have been made so far? Clearly, although Bernard Jensen loved his teacher and mentor, in his heart, I believe his love was for the practice of iridology, and he wanted to see it progress. It's clear from his own words. He says our future is to develop iridology further, which shows that he wasn't ready to be done with iridology. And with all he did, he wanted more. He loved the field of iridology that much. And it's fantastic to understand that some of the very things that he wanted to happen with better cameras and research have actually taken place. Now, Bernard Jensen wrote his last volume in 1984. And obviously there's going to be some clarification. I mean, that was 35 years ago, so it makes sense. Some clarification would need to be made after all that time, right? Bernard Jensen himself said that he would expect change by now. Let's quickly discuss some of the clarifications that have been made. And if you're a practitioner who's new to this concept, please don't just dismiss this information because it challenges your mentor. You owe it to yourself as well as your clients to prove whether this is true or not. And we can only prove it by intelligent investigation. So let's get started. Here we have color change. There are some things that account for misconceptions when it comes to color change. And actually, one of the things is skewed results on the same negatives. Now, this is a picture of a certain paper And the next picture, let's take a look at that. Look at the difference in color. Now this is the same picture, the same negative, but it looks quite different. Different paper produce skewed results on the same negatives. Another example of color change. So what accounts for this misconception? So here you see, this is clearly a window, right? So this is natural light that's lighting this iris. And then in this eye, you have a torch light. In this eye, you see the pupil is large. In this eye, this iris, you see that it is more myotic. Look at the color here. Is anyone's iris this blue? Is anyone's sclera, excuse me, this blue? Actually, by the same Jensenian standard, if someone's iris is that blue, they're quite sick. So we can see that we have natural versus torch lighting, the pupil size, the color temperature, and also the angle of the light is going to make things look skewed, or it's going to make things appear to be different. But in actuality, it really is no color change at all. Here's another example. So in this iris, notice the double lighting versus the single light, the pupil size, right? So you see the two lights here. You see the pupil size again. You see the color temperature. And you also see the angle of the lighting. Obviously, with two lights coming in different directions, you're going to see the relief of all of these lacuna in the eye. But let's take a look at the skin tone. Let's remove the iris from this picture. Now, does this look like it's apples to apples when it comes to a comparison? Look right here. Look at the difference in skin tone. Marked difference in the sclera. The sclera in this picture is natural pink. You have to wonder if someone is trying to prove a point here with this picture. So the point here is to be objective. Make sure that you take into consideration the sclera, the iris, everything, the skin tone when we're doing an iris comparison. Now next, we consider the black, the color black. Now black in the iris structure does not equal cancer. And we know that the medical field wants to hang us up, every person who diagnoses disease. So we're not even staying in our own lane if we make a suggestion like that to a client. But black in the iris does not equal cancer. We now understand that shading indicates the condition of low vitality to the degree of darkness, and it may or may not be relevant oncologically. And this is really good to know, because there are some practitioners that have been known to scare the life out of their clients when they see black in their iris. So it's important to keep up with the current research so that we can practice iridology in a compassionate way. More clarification. Accidents do not cause lacuna. It has been thought that lacuna can occur because of an accident. And we know now that they indicate our predispositions representing health issues of the previous 3 generations. So when we see them, we inquire about family history in those areas. We don't automatically assume, like the next slide says, that iris signs are active. So now this is a baby here, 5-month-old. And if you look in the iris, you might conclude that there's a lot of lymphatic congestion, a lot of inflammation. There should be, from what I learned, that you see white is a current condition. So according to that, this baby should be in so much pain that it's not even funny because of all that white in the iris. But there were no health problems at the time of the initial visit. So you see how it's problematic to be sitting before a client and tell them that, oh, you must have so much pain. And they say, no, what are you going to do as a practitioner? Okay, that's not what I was taught. I was taught that that means pain. But you're telling me it doesn't mean pain. Okay, that was actually one of the problems that I had as I practiced iridology. So when I learned the constitutional model, it taught that no, it doesn't mean that that's activated. That is what you inherited. And that is very important information to practice iridology properly. It gives the practitioner a certain level of comfort to know that everything I see is real, but it doesn't mean that it's active. What about pigmentation? Orange pigment in the eye is not sulfur. Many people believe that it is, but research has taught us that orange pigment is related to the pancreas and is an indication of fermentation caused by low enzyme production. We see this all the time. There's more clarification that iridology has proven. Again, please get those research CDs from IPA to become familiar with this research. Now, if we're critical thinkers, then we're ready for progress and change. Let's discuss some of what is happening in this expanding field in the 21st century. Many people who understand the Jensen model only see it from in terms of, you know, the iris reading and the physical iridology, but there are so many different layers to iridology that when you become an IPA member, you come to appreciate. This is one, multidimensional iridology. And this is Daniele Loreto. He's a medical doctor specializing in otolaryngology, and he is an iridologist, a homeopath, and an experienced acupuncturist who lives in Italy. Now, he introduced the concept of timeless, which I'll show you an example of it in a few minutes. And he introduced this to IPA members in 1997. During the 21st century, he shed new light on the pupil border and other areas of the human eye. Currently, there's new research that's being unfolded with the assistance of Gino Bellinfanti from Canada, respecting the amazing things that we can tell from the pupil itself. This research is ongoing, but isn't it amazing that there are other types of iridology, other things that we can find in the eye? Next, we have birth order. This is Denny Johnson. He's the founder of RED. Denny has made a huge contribution to the multi-layers revealed in iridology today. So here we see it's a book that was published first in 1984. Then we have The Nature of Birth Order in 2002. And the research is ongoing. IPA is very grateful to Denny Johnson for his ongoing support and his contributions as a speaker and also offering online workshops. Actually, he recently did one just a few months back. Now we have Tony Miller. Tony has been practicing iridology since 1981. This picture was taken with Dr. Jensen in 1984, and she actually taught for Dr. Jensen for many years. In 1998, she introduced integrated iridology to the world. And this was the first iridology model to combine iridology teachings from Europe, United States, and Australia from the physical, emotional, and mental perspective. The integrated iridology chart was the first of its type, combining clinically proven reflex zones from Jensen, Engel, Deck, and also her own experience. Her extensive study produced a new model in understanding constitutional iridology, focusing on the 3 primary color types, 6 structural types, and 11 diaphyses. Tony released the first edition of the award-winning integrated iridology textbook in 2008, in which she challenged some of the old myths, including iris structural changes, healing lines, and reversing pigmentation. She is one of the world's foremost authorities on iridology. And a beautiful, beautiful person, my personal friend. Here we have Ellen Jensen. Ellen has studied and worked in the field of iridology and natural healing for nearly 30 years. She is an internationally recognized authority on iridology and holistic health. Her ebooks and educational courses in iridology are used by natural healing schools and students around the world. She's renowned for her work in comprehensive iridology. She studied for several years with Dr. Jensen and became his protege. They worked together at the Hidden Valley Ranch in California. She learned all that she could from Dr. Jensen in the fields of iridology and nutrition, and she is the only person who has written permission from Dr. Bernard Jensen himself to place his seal on iridology certificates. Here we have Dr. Leonard Milmauer. Hailed by Dr. Jensen as one of the pioneers, one of the pioneers of iridology, Dr. Milmauer is considered by most iridology peers to be the world's leading authority in sclerology. He has been clinically practicing, teaching, studying, and researching since 1972. Grand Medicine also maintains a group of professional research and field associates who bring their unique skills and experience to this organization. Next, we have Jim Burgess, behavioral iridology. Now, Jim has been an international educator for over 30 years. He understands how to determine personality and relationships using the iris and the family tree. Now, when I met him in Orlando at an IPAS symposium in February 2017, he blew my mind. So I walked into the vending room and I started chatting during a break. And, you know, he's asking me questions about the family tree and, you know, my relationship, my husband. I was married at 25 years at the time, so that was a milestone for Jared and I. And so he just says to me, your husband thinks that you think you're perfect. He says that to you sometime. I bet he said that to you before. So I'm like, wait, what? So Jared was walking around outside, so I ran, I got him, and I bought him, man. I'm done. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize I was shooting myself in the foot here. But I said, hey, tell him what you just told me. So he says, okay, well, from what she told me, the answers that she gave, I know that you tell her that she thinks she's perfect. So he said, oh, I just told her that yesterday. That was amazing. And so, like I said, I shot myself in the foot because I can't live that one down. But seriously, though, is that not incredible? Before I joined IPA, I didn't even know these types of iridology existed. But now, so much has unfolded. Also, here is Michael Salas. Now, this young man is so impressive. He's a graduate of the Trinity School of Natural Health as a naturopath. In Ontario, Canada, he attended the Academy of International Bioenergetic Sciences, specializing in a Master of Electrodermal Screening. He's a board-certified naturopathic doctor through the American Naturopathic Medical Certification Board and a registered naturopathic diplomat through the National Registry of Naturopathic Practitioners. He is currently president of the California Naturopathic Association. He currently conducts research in iridology and the genome and is the originator of genomic iridology. He discovered a way of identifying the MTFHR gene mutation using iridology and presented his pilot study at the last symposium in Las Vegas in February 2017. And it was captivating when he presented his information. And as a researcher, I was really on the edge of my seat. We appreciate these forward-moving, critical thinking teachers who, like Bernard Jensen, are dedicated to the profession of iridology and who want to contribute to the preservation of this great healing art. Now, from my experience with time risk, so I have a client, and with time risk, you can tell when the event happened. So I asked my client, did you have a traumatic event when you were around 5 years old? So she says, yeah, I was about 5 or 6. And I was with a babysitter who told me not to touch something. And she put it on the shelf above the stove. Well, I decided that I wanted to go get it. And when I went up there, my dress caught on fire and I was in the hospital for 2 months. Now, this is why I'm so excited and think that every iridologist should become familiar with this latest research. This can really transform your practice and take you to the next level as an iridologist. All of the research and all of the researchers that we just saw give us that. We can really accomplish a great deal by embracing the research. It will totally take us into the 21st century and beyond. In order for iridology to reach our dream goal, there are some standards that are important. The medical field has standards, right? And we're happy they do. It ensures that our doctors are qualified. Well, what standards are necessary for iridology? It's important to appreciate that in association with IPA certification, there are definitely standards that need to be met. And I like to call these the gold standard. Obviously, improper standards will delay the progress of iridology. When a practitioner who is certified after doing a 3-week course with no anatomy, no physiology understanding, does a consultation using old understanding and makes improper recommendations, it's the profession of iridology that's going to suffer, not just the practitioner. Nobody wants a practitioner who is not keeping up with current understanding. And IPA really is holding to the highest of standards when it comes to this. So as this mentions, the gold standard is science to be accurately interpreted and appropriately communicated. The highest level of compassion and professionalism. Do no harm in word or action. That applies here. Also, solid educational background. You cannot become certified by IPA without knowledge of anatomy and physiology. We also must keep up with current research. In order to have our certification certificate updated, we have to have continuing education credits. It's important. It's the gold standard. What can we do to help move the profession of iridology forward? It's a good thing to think about. And as you do, think of IPA. There's so much room for dedicated practitioners, teachers, and researchers. Bring your love for the profession of iridology and your positive, humble spirit to IPA, and let's get working together to move forward. So IPA, are you a member? If not, we would love you to join. Speaking from experience is one of the best things that you can do for your love of iridology. My first symposium was in Orlando, Florida, in February of 2017. And I can vividly remember the feeling that I had when I sat in the room with iridologists who had probably a total of more than 1,000 years of iridology practice, instruction, and research collectively. Now, no one mentor could ever offer you that, no matter how amazing they are. And I feel so much appreciation to everyone who's been all embracing, who they mentor you, they help you, you can ask questions. It's truly an organization that is dedicated to iridology. And I absolutely love this organization. So how can we take action? We're encouraged to fill out our own application and become a member. Many people who support IPA or love IPA are not actually members of IPA. So we encourage you, if you love what we're doing, please support it. Teachers, we encourage you to gift membership to all your students like my teacher did. It's a beautiful thing to introduce people to IPA. Also, promote IPA on your website. Volunteer your time. Investigate research claims with an open mind. Invite other practitioners to do so as well. And support research. Together, we are much stronger than we are. So, the future of iridology is you. No, seriously, it is. Iridology is truly an amazing profession. It has the potential to be exactly what Bernard Jensen envisioned, what IPA and every iridologist desires, to see iridology a household word. It would be amazing to see all iridologists everywhere unite. It's up to each individual practitioner to hold themselves to the gold standard of practice. Learn from Dr. Bernard Jensen to be open to change and progress, and don't be blinded by emotion. It is my sincere hope that each one will act decisively for the perpetuation and the preservation of iridology as a profession. If we do, we can only expect amazing things as iridology continues through this 21st century and beyond.